Just as pogonophobia is the morbid fear of beards, and arachnophobia is the morbid fear of spiders, so pasticerophobia is the morbid fear of making pastries. It's a fear most of us have, and it's one I hope we can overcome today in Consuming Passions, because I believe it's best fighting fear by facing it. And we're going to do it with a Turkish recipe for nightingales' nests, little curly pastries that are as easy to make as they are good to eat. First, to the filling. Traditionally, walnuts will be used, but I like to use a range of nuts, pistachios, macadamias, and almonds. And I chop them all very, very finely. And of course, the Australian macadamia nut is superb for its butteriness. Pistachios adding colour as well as flavour, and used in many Middle Eastern pastries. They need to be chopped very finely. You could also do this in a food processor. Once finely chopped, they're put into a bowl and mixed with some sugar and some cinnamon. Not too much cinnamon. I don't want to overpower the delicate flavours of the nuts. And that's our filling. Now to the pastry. I'm going to use a bought ready-made filo pastry, which is easy to use if you take a little care and employ a damp but not wet tea towel as a base to work on. I put 3 or 4 sheets of filo pastry out onto the tea towel and then brush very lightly with a nut oil. Macadamia or walnut or almond oil would be ideal. Traditional Turkish recipes would use melted butter, but the Heart Foundation recommends reducing our intake of saturated animal fats, and oil works well in this recipe. Now the nut filling is sprinkled over the pastry, and I do this with a strainer to make sure I don't get any large lumps. Now here comes the interesting part. With a thin rolling pin, like this Turkish rolling pin, or stick or dowel of some kind, I start one corner of the pastry and roll up. I've just used the top sheet, 1 sheet per nest. Once rolled, I squeeze in the ends of the pastry, slide the roll off, and then curl up the nightingale's nest, placing it on an oiled baking tray. A light brushing of oil, and they're off to the oven. A moderate oven for about 25 minutes until they're golden brown, and that gives me time to make a syrup to go with them. I mix 1.5 cups of sugar with about 1 cup of water. The proportions don't need to be exact, and just boil for about 10 minutes or so, stirring from time to time. If the sugar starts to crystallize too much, I just add a little more water. And once that's done, I remove from the heat and squeeze in the juice of a lemon. I need at least 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Once the nests are taken from the oven, the syrup is poured over them and they're allowed to cool. Once they're cooled, they're transferred to a serving plate and are garnished with the reserved chopped nuts, the pistachios, the almonds and macadamias. And there you have it, nightingale's nests, perfect on their own or with fresh fruit and yogurt. Another triumph for Consuming Passions. Till next time, bon appetit.